afternoon, good evening, even perhaps good night, dear viewer, wherever you may be. Had a look at my video for the ancient Greek army count. On reflection, probably should have split it at least into the early and later Greek forces. Probably tried to cover a bit too much on the one table. And had a few requests to have just a bit of a closer look at the early Greeks, which were at the back of the original video. In front of you is just what I call the Spartan half of the early Greek hoplites. I have actually gone through and tried to spruce up the basing just a little. Let's have a look. Oh. As you can see there, nothing too dramatic. In fact, I haven't even, oh yes, there's a tuft just there. Nothing too dramatic, but I've just gone and spruced up this part of the collection. I will eventually get round to doing all the ancient Greeks with a bit of improved flocking and basing and so forth. A couple of questions I had was some people, it struck them as a bit strange as to, hang on, Ian, why have you got on each base, you've got, as I say, what I call march attack figure with an advancing figure. And this goes back to when I first started to start a ancients collection. I knew nothing about ancients apart from history and a TV show here in Australia called Epic Theatre back in the 1960s when I was young. Sword and sandal films, I think they would describe them as today. And the group I was playing with played a lot of DBA, De Bellis Antiquitas, not the current version, of course. I'm going back to about 2008, 2009, and DBM. Now, I've always liked figures in two ranks on my basing, as you had a look at my Napoleonic collection. And if I was going to go down the DBA path, I wanted to try and sort of give that optical illusion, I suppose, of two ranks, which was why I tried this idea. I've done this actually with my Macedonian hypastist models. I actually quite like the look. I think it comes up quite well, but that's why they're sort of based in perhaps a slightly odd way compared to, I imagine most people would have either all march attack, as I did with, excuse my arm, all march attack, as I did with my later Greeks, or with actual two ranks like I've got them there, march attack at the back and attacking at the front. But as I say, remember that at the time, when I first started and knowing nothing about rules, one base was simply going to be, in effect, a unit. I think DBA's 12 bases and etc., etc. Since then, I've got an absolute plethora of rules, ranging from L'Art de la Guerre. Hail Caesar was very popular when I first started this collection. Played a lot of games of Hail Caesar and enjoyed it. Historically accurate. Probably more of a game than a simulation, but a bit of fun. One thing I have noticed is that, and fair enough, the old Warhammer Ancient Battles and Warlords, they want you to buy a lot of figures. So the units are very big. Now for some people like Yorkshire Gamer, to them that's real wargaming. It's not a proper unit unless it consists of about, metaphorically, 103 models. And that's fine. If you've got the time, willing to put in the effort, and perhaps as much as anything else, you've got the finances to support it. Now, admittedly, plastics, of which I haven't got any, have probably made that a lot easier. These figures here, they're actually the original Immortal figures. You can see they're a little bit on the thin, sort of spindly side, but they were the actual original Immortals before Warlords, took them over. These figures here, let's pop this down just a sec. Now these are a mixture of, I had to look up the company, Gorgon Miniatures and Foundry. Now the ones with the metal cuirass are Foundry, sold as early Spartans. The ones in the linen cuirass, or forgive my pronunciation, linothorax, they're Gorgon miniatures. Two of the few companies that I've actually seen do the Spartans in their, what they believe to be their proper, inverted commas, uniform at places like Thermopylae and Plataea. Later on, of course, Spartans, many companies simply depict Spartans with the Pylos helmet. But there you go. And I've got Osprey books. One that'll swear black and blue that they had ditched the metal cuirass by the time of Thermopylae and just wore the linothorax. And I've got another Osprey book that'll say that the Spartans actually never wore the linothorax. They went straight from the metal cuirass to being completely unarmoured. So there you go. You pays your money, you takes your choice. This group here, now these two models advancing, they're Gorgon, they're actually proper Spartans. Hopefully you can make out the long hair. That's usually what distinguishes them from the other hoplites. You'll notice that the other two are just bog standard hoplites from Foundry. That's because this group here was meant to be pure Spartiates, whereas these, they're a mixture of Spartiates in a sense and people from villages around, not the helots, not the slaves. Perioikoi. Yeah, sorry, I can't remember. I probably said it wrong anyway. But say, for example, at Plataea, there was 5,000 Spartiates and 5,000 of the Perioikoi, or whatever they were called. So the Spartiates did use other Lacedaemons around. These guys, I called these runners out in the first video. Igdromoi, I think, is the proper pronunciation. They were guys meant to be able to run out from the phalanx and to catch the skirmishers that were giving the hoplites so much trouble. Okay, let's call it quits there. We've gone on for too long, and we'll just have a quick look at the later Greeks. Okay, just quickly, just going over the later Greeks, which I described as sort of Peloponnesian War onwards. I talked about the different helmets, but I didn't give you a close-up. So as I said, now I've just picked 4 random samples here. This first one, now hopefully you should see there the 2 middle figures. See, they've got that, what they described as a Thracian style of helmet, which looks a lot like the Macedonian or Alexandrian Macedonian army helmet to me. Then the one I'm a little bit dubious about, the Thebans with the Boeotian helmet. I have got an osprey that shows an unarmoured hoplite with a early form of Boeotian helmet. And here's the sort of Athenian version. Again, these 2 middle figures, hopefully it shows on the camera. It does look a bit like the older Corinthian, but the face is open. You don't have that chin, nose plate, or the chin plates aren't quite so pronounced. Although otherwise it does look a bit like the Corinthian helmet that was described as the Attic helmet. And then of course you've got your classic Spartans with the pilos. Although as I mentioned in the earlier video, I think once the pilos came into vogue, I think pretty much they all would have followed with that. The unarmoured hoplites, apart from the Spartan ones, which are specific foundry, when I say unarmoured, I mean they don't have a cuirass and often don't necessarily have greaves on their legs. They are foundry and they are specific. The rest of the unarmoured hoplites, I should say, tend to be generic. I have got some foundry ones, but these ones in particular are Crusader. And I really like Crusader minis, but they eventually became fairly difficult to get here in Australia. A mob called War and Peace was importing them, but then I think Plastics has probably done them in. And just one thing too, foundry, Crusader, I find 28mm figures tend to go together or 28mm figures from different manufacturers tend to go together a lot better than their 15, 18mm counterparts. But there are still some funny little idiosyncrasies, such as the foundry shields seem absolutely tiny. I thought they looked fine when I first put them on, but you look at the size of the Crusader shields and the Immortal shields are absolutely huge. There you go. As you can see, I haven't upgraded the basing on these as yet. Simply have to buy some more supplies. So that's it. Just a quick revisit of the 28mm Greek Army count. Thanks for watching.